Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the annual open meeting of the British School at Athens. This year we celebrate the 125th anniversary of the school's foundation. And in keeping with the spirit of the occasion, my review of the past year will be set in the context of our traditions, shifting focus, and future plans. Indeed, we're taking the opportunity through 2011 to reflect upon the school's history in video presentations, decade by decade, on our website, using our archival holdings. As we reach recent decades, we hope that this will encourage our members to share their memories of the school to help us build an oral archive. We've also begun preparation for a new institutional history. But before I present the Director's report and introduce tonight's main speaker, Dr. Evangelia Kyriadzi, it's my particular pleasure to thank the Secretary General of the Archaeological Society, Dr. Vasilis Petrakos, for the generous hospitality which he once again extends to us. The British School also expresses its gratitude for the unfailing support of the Secretary General of the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Dr. Lina Mandoni, of the Director of Antiquities, Dr. Maria Andreadaki Blazaki, of the Director of Prehistoric and Classical Antiquities, Mrs. Nicoletta Valaco, and of all their staff. We particularly thank those in charge of the relevant regions when our major field seasons took place. Mrs. Stavroula Apostolako in Anikolas, Mrs. Maria Bredaki and Dr. Athanasia Kanda in Heraklion, Dr. Marisa Mathari in the Cyclades, Mrs. Amalia Karabaskalidou in Kalkis, Dr. Maria Fortini Papakonstantino in Lamia, Dr. Angeliki Simosi of the Ephoria of Maritime Antiquities, and Dr. Adamantia Vasilogandrou in Sparta. 2010 has been a year of transition, with established field projects drawing to a close, new ones beginning, and new directions in our academic work and the manner of its presentation. Among our publications, I note Cretan Offerings, the Festschrift for School Vice President Peter Warren, with contributions from many colleagues here present. The Cretan theme will be continued with volumes on Kafi and Palekastro, now in press. The imminent addition to JSTOR of our monograph series, following the annual, will give readers electronic access to all but our very latest publications. The 2010 edition of the school's annual will be the last to appear in the current format. In 2011, it will be produced by Cambridge University Press in print and electronic formats, with a facility for rolling e-publication, which will be especially valuable for our science-based research. Archaeological Reports has already moved to Cambridge University Press. The 2010 edition contains one of the largest archaeology in Greece supplements in recent memory, reinforcing the timeliness of our decision to publish Archaeology in Greece online. In continuing collaboration with the École Française d'Athènes, AG Online is developing as a rolling service with full RSS support, while we are now working with the Society for the Promotion of Hellenic Studies to transform the print publication into a more widely accessible and usable synthesis, not only for a specialist audience. Among the changes to the school's constitution made in 2009, I reported last year the creation of a Committee for Society, Arts and Letters to develop our non-archaeological research, of which we have a distinguished history. Some of the work conducted in 2010 will seem familiar. The Byzantine Research Fund archive formed the subject of an exhibition, Architectural Trails Through Byzantium, at the Lefa Gallery in Psychiko, curated by the archivist and coordinated by gallery director Elisa Gerolimatou. This showed highlights of 6 monuments recorded by the fund's architects: the Daphne Monastery, and Panagia Govorepikos in Attica, Aias Demetrios, Aias Iorios, and Prophetis Elias in Thessaloniki, and Osios Lukas Monastery in Phokis. It was accompanied by an educational outreach program for all school levels, generously supported by OPAP and the Δημοτικής Κοινοφελούς Επιχείρησης Ψυχικού. The Byzantine Research Fund continues to be the focus of the archivist's research, but now in preparation for a conference and exhibition in London in 2013, which will examine the longer-term impact of the Byzantine revival and the later commissions fulfilled by our architects. Other projects take us in new directions. In the past 2 months, the school has jointly organised 2 conferences which reaffirm the importance of dialogue between humanities scholarship and public policy. In December, we joined colleagues from Athens University and Oxford Brookes University in a workshop on health and society, private and public medical traditions, and Greece and the Balkans, at which scholars from Turkey and across the Balkans joined British and Greek historians to explore the social and medical history of the delivery of healthcare in a region where influences from the Ottoman and Arab East and the Latin West intersect. The result was both important regional history and analysis liable to deepen our historical understanding of contemporary attitudes to public health. This conference is our first to be published online. A generous benefaction has now equipped us to continue this, and we look forward to making records of selected events available via our website, beginning with this year's open lectures in London and here tonight. Secondly, just 3 weeks ago, we joined the Hellenic Observatory of the London School of Economics in a workshop on changing conceptions of Europe in modern Greece, identities, meanings, and legitimation. Debate was certainly sharpened by the current crisis, on which former Prime Minister Kostas Simitis gave an accompanying evening lecture in the British Embassy. But the meeting fulfilled our wider aim to add a historical and anthropological depth to economic and political analysis. Many of the school's research collaborations in and beyond Britain and Greece fall under the aegis of society, arts, and letters. In addition to our established collaborations with the American School of Classical Studies, we now share seminars with the École Française d'Athènes in history and anthropology, and with the Research Centre for Greek Philosophy of the Academy of Athens. Plans for the next 4 years include collaborations with the British School at Rome and the Hellenic Institute in Venice on the cultural and artistic development of the Adriatic ports, with the British Council on the promotion of modern Greek literature after the Second World War, and with the Council for British Research in the Levant on perceptions of British authority from the Ionian government to the independence of Cyprus. This last will make particular use of the Noel Baker family papers held in the school's archive, especially on issues of relief work and the independence of Cyprus. We're particularly grateful to the Noel Baker family for a further gift of correspondence, diaries, and photographs, mostly dating from World War I onwards, as well as the loan of landscape paintings of Evia by Frank Noel and Edward Lear. Project historian Eleftheria D'Alessio is cataloguing this material while pursuing her study of Irini Noel Baker's relief work, and is assisted by Semele Asender, who is using the archive in connection with her doctoral research on images of Greece in the work of British women novelists after the Cretan insurrection. 2011 also marks the 10th anniversary of the Prince of Wales Bursary for the Arts, an award which supports creative artists in any medium and at any career stage to advance their work via experience of Greece past and present. Holders have ranged from established artists such as photographer Richard Billingham in the year of his Turner Prize nomination, or Tim Shaw as he completed his commissions for the Eden Project in Cornwall and the Royal Opera House, and turned to his Gulf War cycle, Casting a Dark Democracy, of which we see a detail here. To younger artists wanting to work in a different urban context or engage with the Greek landscape. This year's holder is a sculptor, Brigitte Jorak, of Manchester Metropolitan University, whose work explores youth as a period of uncertainty, unstable identity, and sexual ambiguity. The completion of the Upper House studio, made possible by a generous benefaction from Mr. Lukolakis, is already helping us to expand the range of our activities and to develop new partnerships in Britain and in Greece. I turn now to the school's archaeological research. In 2010, we conducted an extensive programme of fieldwork and study at sites from eastern Crete to Thessaly. Some of the projects on which I have reported in previous years, Keros, Lefkandi, Karfi, are in study phase and nearing completion. At Lefkandi, for example, continuing post-excavation study of the ceramic and architectural records under the direction of Irini Lemos moved away from the previous focus on the elite megara to consider evidence for later occupation in Region 1. Middle to late protogeometric pebble surfaces were defined in the northern part of Area P, and a substantial apsidal building of the late protogeometric and possibly sub-protogeometric periods restored in the south. While surfaces related to this structure remain elusive, occupation and possibly an industrial installation as suggested by clay mould, lead clamps, and cooking vessels. The building also provides a context for the small figurine, probably a centaur, excavated in 2004. In this evening's lecture, I can present only highlights of our fieldwork programme, and I therefore focus on two sites which have yielded particularly significant results and introduced certain new projects which began in 2010. At the Neolithic settlement at Koutroulou-Maghoula in northern Thessaly, a collaborative excavation and ethnography project began under the direction of Yannis Hamilakis and the long-established excavator of the site, Nina Kiparisi Apostolika. A survey of the topography and extant archaeological remains was completed with attention to two major structures: Building 1 with at least 3 habitation phases, and the larger Building 2 at the highest point of the settlement. Agricultural activity and the dumping of soil has destroyed or obscured most evidence for terracing, but survey on the north side of the Maghoula revealed possible retaining walls and a flat terrace which could easily have accommodated a series of structures of similar size to Building 1. The principal phase of occupation dates to the Middle Neolithic, but post-medieval remains were also documented. In 2010, Building 2 and the area outside its north, east and south sides were investigated to identify its earlier phases and to provide stratified material from deposits predating it. Building 2 was a robust rectangular structure with elaborately constructed walls and clay floors laid over a stone-paved underfloor deposit. It underwent a series of modifications and alterations. For example, its south wall appears to have been deliberately removed. That it once existed is confirmed by the inturn of the east wall at the southern end, and the fact that the southern end of the floor foundation appears undamaged. These alterations will be explored further in future seasons. In the absence of internal features or informative finds, the function of the building cannot be determined, but its size, elaborate construction, and probable repairs to its east wall suggest that it was an important and probably long-lived structure. The cleanliness of its interior, lack of destruction debris, and possible evidence for a careful, arguably methodical demolition suggest deliberate destruction. Similar practices have been discussed for the Neolithic of the Balkans. Rich deposits were excavated on the northeast side of Building 2, although they predate the building stratigraphically and offer no help in reconstructing its function or the activities that took place in or around it. Numerous finds include clay figurines, plain and decorated pottery, chipped and ground stone, animal bones and shell. Notable among the finds from the main Middle Neolithic phase of the settlement are many clay figurines, more than 30 found in 2010, which, when added to the high numbers collected in previous years, mean the Koutroulou-Maghoula has one of the largest collections of Neolithic figurines from stratified contexts in Greece. However, no clear association with specific features or other finds can yet be established. Excavation in 2010 also produced evidence for later occupation: Bronze Age pottery, a substantial quantity of Byzantine and Ottoman pottery and tile, and a 12th century coin. There must have been considerable Byzantine activity, although secure contexts are currently lacking. An extensive programme of environmental sampling and analysis accompanied the excavation. Soil micromorphology was targeted to investigate the laying out of floors and the nature of some clay deposits. Initial assessment of the identifiable portion of the animal bone assemblage from the 2001 to 2010 seasons revealed the principal divisions shown here, which are likely representative of the site as a whole. Tortoise, hare, roe deer, and red deer are also found in smaller quantities. A number of scattered human bones was found mixed with animal bones, possibly indicating the circulation of human remains within the settlement. Analysis of botanical material from soil samples collected in the 2009 season from undisturbed excavation units and all types of contexts, floors, pits, post holes, etc., revealed a variety of species: cereals, legumes, fruit and nuts, herbs, and various wild flora, both edible and not. In parallel with the excavation, an ethnographic project combined investigation of local communities with that of their relationship to the material past. the community of Neo-Monasteri is most closely associated with the site and the research team. Most inhabitants are refugees and descendants of refugees who arrived in the 1920s from former Anatoliki Romelia in modern Bulgaria. They hold strongly to a distinctive identity expressed primarily through language, dance, and music. Indeed, previous ethnographic studies have concentrated mostly on these forms of expression. The archaeological ethnography strand of the present project is far wider, taking as its core elements material culture and notions of memory and temporality, and it has attracted keen interest and widespread participation. A series of community activities and public archaeology events was also organised, many in collaboration with a local association of Friends of Antiquities, originally established to promote the archaeological site of the Acropolis of Proerna, and now revived around the Cutrulu Magula project. Material from the Cutrulu excavations also forms an important part of the postdoctoral research of the Fitch Laboratory's Williams Fellow in Ceramic Petrology, Areti Pentedeka. Building upon her doctoral research on pottery exchange networks in Thessaly, and in collaboration with Eva Aram-Stern of the Austrian Academy of Sciences, John Coleman of Cornell University, and the regional archaeological service departments, Areti is analysing select assemblages from central Greece and Thessaly to shed light on intra- and extra-regional connectivity as expressed in material culture, especially pottery. Cutrulu Magula lies in the heart of the interface region, and the project also draws on finds from Wason Thompson's excavations at Lianokladi and Sangli. This combination of projects marks the school's return to this part of Greece after a gap of almost a century. Moving south to Laconia, the Pavlopetri Underwater Archaeological Project aims to outline the history and development of this submerged prehistoric town, probably the main port of entry to the southeast Peloponnese during the Bronze Age, and to explain how the town and the Strait of Elafonisos became submerged. The second field season in 2010 saw the completion of a full survey of the visible architectural remains, with continued use of the sector scan sonar trialled last year, and digital survey using a shore-based total station. The sector scan sonar provides instantaneous high-resolution seafloor scans consisting of 3D point cloud data comparable to that produced by terrestrial laser scanners. 214 drops were carried out, covering the entire site. Scan radii range from 100-metre scans of building complexes to very high-resolution 5-metre scans of areas of importance such as cyst graves. Radii of 15 to 30 metres were most effective in producing measured scans of buildings in which individual stones within walls are visible. All of the standing structures on site, buildings, streets, courtyards, walls and graves, were recorded in 3 dimensions, alongside the topography of the seabed. The data produced are now being manipulated in 3D environments to produce isometric images of the building complexes. The major innovation in 2010 was the first use on an archaeological site of a stereovision mapping system designed by the Australian Centre for Field Robotics. This is capable of producing photorealistic, textured 3-dimensional maps and models of features on the seabed. Stereo cameras obtain measured 2-dimensional photomosaics, which are then processed using simultaneous localization and mapping software to produce 3D models. Multi-beam sonar on the diver rig obtains 3D data on seabed surfaces that can be combined with the stereo photogrammetric data. In 2010, priority was given to recording areas of the highest archaeological importance. A total of 47 dives gathered more than 135,000 pairs of stereo images. Post-processing of this large quantity of data is expected to take at least a year, but the preliminary results are extremely encouraging. One 15 by 30 metre survey box, built of 6,315 stereo image pairs, contains a so-called megaron, Building 9, and parts of Street 1. These structures can clearly be seen in both the photomapped and depth-coloured views. And here we see an overhead view of another mesh of Chamber 2-1, located on the bedrock ridge to the northeast of the city. This tomb was cut from the surrounding bedrock, producing a structure with large depth variations. These preliminary results suggest that the 3D reconstructions are highly suitable for archaeological interpretation, both as a visually coherent, composite view of the site and as a three-dimensional model. The ability to produce geometrically accurate, photorealistic maps of submerged archaeological features and photorealistic models of them has the potential to revolutionize the practice of underwater archaeological survey. The visible architectural remains at Pavlopetri begin some 20 metres from the shore at Punta Beach and run over 300 metres south to Pavlopetri Island. They are bounded to the east by a bedrock ridge running north to south, and to the west by extensive sand deposits and deeper water. No remains have been identified in water more than 3 metres deep. Beyond the island and the eastern ridge, the sea is deeper, as is clear in this image, and no artificial constructions can be traced. No indications of artificial harbour constructions or jetties have yet been identified. The town appears as a series of large spreads of stones, indicating building complexes, among which is a network of stone walls built of uncut aeolianite, sandstone and limestone blocks without mortar. These stone foundations were originally around 1 metre high and supported superstructures of mud brick and/or timber frames covered in plaster. The eastern bedrock ridge protects the remains from the full force of wave action, and most walls are in the same condition as was observed during the initial prospection in 1968. But wherever there are gaps in the ridge, walls have been eroded either completely away or flush with the seabed. In addition to recording the 30,000 square metres of buildings first identified in 1968, 9,000 square metres of new structures were discovered to the north of the original remains in 2009. And in 2010, a further 5,000 were found to the south, with at least 7 buildings clustered along a street running southwest to northeast, and 4 new cis graves, bringing the site total to 43. These remains were probably covered by sand in previous years. Changes in sand cover may relate to changes in the position and shape of the shoreline over time, causing variability in wave action. Equally, the bathymetry and topography of the town and the eastern bedrock ridge show low gaps in the ridge where wave action would pass through and be diffracted and refracted around Pavlopetri Island and other high points. This would focus wave energy at discontinuous points over the town and the adjacent beach, with a pattern of high and low energy determined by the recent wave direction. Revisiting the site in future years and at different seasons may therefore reveal further parts of the Bronze Age town at present under thick beds of sand. Plainly, Pavlopetri is a larger and more important town than previously thought. Visible remains of intact building foundations, monumental structures, courtyards, streets, cis graves, and rock-cut tombs now cover some 4 hectares. Scattered sections of wall suggest that the fully built-up area extended as far as Pavlopetri Island, and since many more buildings are likely hidden under the sand, the original size of the settlement may be at least 8 hectares. In an innovative collaboration, the BBC filmed the survey work in 2010 and plans to return in 2011 to cover the first season of excavation and complete a documentary for release in 2012. Part of that project involves the production of computer-generated reconstructions based upon the survey data. This small extract, is just a first draft. It's a work in progress, and honestly it's very low resolution, but I think it illustrates how the quantity and quality of data now being obtained can support both academic research and popular outreach. This is the site area which we have just seen. Its likely relationship to the putative harbour area can be clearly understood from this aerial image, and it is rather reminiscent of the situation of the town and harbour of Kathri on Kythera, as we'll see. Most architectural remains are now more exposed than in 2009, revealing large quantities of pottery, including almost intact pithoi. A more comprehensive programme of lifting was therefore undertaken to recover material at risk. 7 collections were made, and a total of 395 artefacts, pottery and stone tools, recovered. The pottery lifted in 2010 confirmed that the earliest occupation dates to the final Neolithic and enhanced the range of early, middle, and especially late Bronze Age wares retrieved. The Neopalatial material, both imported and local, shows close affinities with finds from Kythera and Crete. Sporadic later finds date to the late geometric, classical, Roman and Byzantine periods. Architectural materials lifted include parts of roof and drainage tiles, mud brick and clay settings for roof rafters. The Pavlopetri project is a significant development in our long history of Laconian research, from the Laconia survey to Aistephanos and beyond. As a major port of entry, Pavlopetri also links with our work on Antikythera and Kythera, in which the Fitch Laboratory plays a leading role, as we will hear presently. Research also continues further north in Laconia, pursuing a long-held aim to follow the Laconia Survey and Rural Sites project of the 1980s, with excavation of a later Hellenistic or Roman rural site. Koufouvenon is best known for its Neolithic settlement, but test trenches have indicated possible Roman habitation to the west, and in 2010, preparatory resistivity and magnetometer surveys were undertaken in this area. A probable kiln or furnace with collapsed walls is here marked, and other architectural indications include circular features in the magnetometer data, which may be further kilns or furnaces, and north-south linear features, which are probably terraces or paths. Turning now to KNOSSOS, the school's research centre continues to host a number of post-excavation studies, notably for the Little Palace North, Southwest Houses, and the KNOSSOS Kefala project, on which I reported last year, as well as the curatorial project on the holdings of the Stratigraphical Museum. KNOSSOS Urban Landscape Project, an intensive survey of the entire protected archaeological zone of the Knossos Valley, right into the suburbs of modern Heraklion, has been the centrepiece of the school's work at Knossos for some years. After the first phase of study, it's clear, as we see, that the combination of these new data with over a century of excavation in the valley gives a wholly new perspective on the long-term development of the site. Our 2011 London Open lecture, a review of the aims and achievements of the survey to date, was presented last week by its co-director, Todd Whitelaw, and will shortly be broadcast online. The next step is to address specific research questions framed in whole or part by the survey data via a series of special projects, and this we have now begun. After over a century of continuous fieldwork at Knossos, the Bronze Age town remains perhaps the least understood sector of the site on a large scale. A new project to investigate the suburbs of the town was begun in 2010 on the Lower Gypsades Hill, including the terraces on which lie the caravanserai and the house of the High Priest. This is an ideal location for geophysical survey because of the absence of deep post-Bronze Age occupation levels and the likelihood that the area represents the outer suburbs of the settlement, bounded above and to the south by cemeteries. It illustrates well the strong framework provided by combining information from the urban survey and from earlier archaeological interventions, data with good spatial control, but from different investigative strategies. A magnetometer survey covering some 14.5 hectares in July 2010 was supplemented in January 2011 with resistivity in selected areas. Initial review of the magnetometer data indicates terracing broadly following slope contours, while possible tomb signatures appear to the south, east and southwest, suggesting that the cemetery lay across the southernmost sector of the study area. The resistivity survey was completed only in the last days of January, but a very preliminary presentation of the results over the topography indicates areas of interest on which I'll report more fully next year. Finally, I turn to the Fitch Laboratory, where the past year has seen major changes, as well as progress in completing existing projects and developing new ones which expand the scope and geographical coverage of the laboratory's research. A postgraduate training course in ceramic petrology was taught for the first time in collaboration with University College London, and combining petrology, the location and processing of raw material, and an introduction to ethnographical aspects of pottery production. And we have realised long-held plans for the laboratory's infrastructure with the installation of a new wavelength dispersive X-ray fluorescence instrument. Extensive changes to the premises were needed to meet the specifications of the new technique, resulting in a major reconfiguration of space to house our expanded activities and the growing number of researchers using our facilities. In autumn 2009, the Fitch welcomed its second senior visiting fellow, Kostolena Michalaki, then Associate Professor of Anthropology at McMaster University. She pursued 2 projects during her fellowship. The first was to examine the influence of data format, methodology of data analysis, and the kinds and numbers of elements included in multivariate analytical methods on establishing ceramic chemical groups. The second was analysis of chemical and mineralogical data from prehistoric ceramics from the Bova Marina Archaeological project in southwest Calabria, a joint project of the universities of Cambridge and Leicester. Comparative analysis of ceramic material from 4 Neolithic and Bronze Age sites showed that although potters had access to at least 4 or 5 distinct kinds of clay close to their settlements, they did not use them indiscriminately, but targeted particular clays for the production of particular kinds of ceramics. Research in the Fitch cannot be summarised in its entirety in the brief time left to me, so here too I will just illustrate its main directions. The work of the research fellow in archaeological chemistry, Metoyo Gakapoulou, was largely focused on exploring the potential of metallurgical remains, mostly iron slags, found in survey in reconstructing ancient metallurgical practices. Much of her data derives from the Kithara Island project, and I therefore leave the full story to be told by our main speaker tonight. Ceramic analysis continued to form the major part of Fitch research over the past year, with a series of projects on pottery of all periods from Neolithic to Venetian. The laboratory research officer during the 2009-10 session, Xenia Charalambidou, worked on pottery from the early Iron Age, mostly middle geometric, Tunis cemetery at Tsikalareon in inland Naxos. Combining macroscopic and microscopic analysis of pottery from these graves, she's concentrated on reconstructing the life cycle of the original pots in the context of inland Naxos. Samples were subjected to petrographic analysis, as were a selection from the contemporary Plithos cemetery in Naxos town, in order to compare fabrics in inland and coastal Naxos. In addition to her work in Thessaly, Williams Fellow Arati Pentedeka is investigating pottery production and trade from prehistory to late antiquity in the central Ionian Islands, an area substantially unexplored in terms of archaeological science. The initial focus is on Ithaca as a strategic point within maritime networks linking the Peloponnese, northwestern Greece and southern Italy, and locally between Lefkas, Kefalonia and the Acarnanian coast. Some 200 Neolithic to late Roman ceramic samples were taken from old BSA excavation assemblages, the recent Stavros Valley survey, and from projects of the Lambda Epsilon EPCA. In parallel, raw material prospection and sampling provides a basis for characterizing local products. Preliminary results of petrographic analysis yield interesting information on pottery production and circulation of all periods. Our present focus is on the Roman period, since from early Roman times onwards, coursewairs, notably cooking pots, present an unprecedented variability in fabric. We wish to assess the impact of this trade on the output of local workshops, especially during the period of settlement growth following the decline of Nicopolis, itself a major source of imports. To set these results into context, a parallel study of Middle and Late Roman assemblages from Fuscavo and Samio and Kefalonia has now begun. Archaeobotanical work in the Fitch was pursued by Levendis fellow Evi Margariti, who continued her research into vine and olive domestication. Following extensive fieldwork in 2008-9 to gather modern grape and olive samples from various areas of Greece, her work in 2010 focused on the retrieval of well-stratified archaeobotanical remains from excavations in the Aegean and Crete, including Keros, Thermi, Samos, Chrysi, and Papadiokambos. She completed an analysis of material from the school's excavation of early Bronze Age Thessalyi and Keros, where stratified olive and grape remains, together with an abundance of olive charcoal, indicate intensive human exploitation of both plants. Publications arising, in part, deal with certain of these new data, notably from Crete, Thermi, and Thessalyi, but also challenge current models for the distinction of wild and domesticated species. Finally, she collaborated with colleagues in the University of Cambridge in the initiation of a molecular project focusing on a pilot study on the extraction of DNA from both modern and ancient olive populations. In my report last year, I said little about the Fitch's geophysical research, so I return now to note just one project completed in 2009-10. Michael Boyd, Honorary Fellow in Geophysics, returned to Plateas in Biosha for a fourth and final season of the current research programme in 2009, and in 2010 completed all post-processing and data integration. As reported in previous years, the team has made remarkable discoveries at a site whose surface remains are so scant. The outline of the late classical, Hellenistic and Roman town has been clearly delineated, including the location of the Agora with its public monuments, and that of other important public buildings and private dwellings. The final season covered zones of the site further from the centre, as well as filling out some of the central area. Some 5.5 hectares were surveyed, bringing the overall total to 27 hectares, 32% of the enclosed area, the largest resistivity survey to date in Greece. A magnetometer survey of around 5 hectares was also completed over the lifetime of the project. The final season added to our knowledge of the northern gateway of the extent of urban build-up, no more than 50% of the enclosed area was ever occupied, and added a new locus of occupation on the east side of the site. I close with brief mention of 2 workshops which drew together the key theoretical and methodological themes that characterise Fitch research in recent years. The first, on recent approaches to the study of pottery from prehistory to Byzantine times, co-organised with the universities of Thessaloniki, Thrace and Cincinnati, poured the experience of those working on different periods in relation to contemporary theoretical and methodological developments. The variety of approaches and topics is remarkable, but the Fitch emphasis on bringing questions and approaches current in prehistory to bear on post-prehistoric and indeed medieval data is central to current trends. The second, on mobile technologies across dynamic landscapes, perspectives in Mediterranean prehistory, reflects long-standing Fitch involvement in developing approaches and methodologies to integrate scientific techniques into the investigation of technological change at local, regional and interregional levels. 15 speakers from across Europe and North America explored different aspects of technological mobility in the prehistoric Mediterranean, enlivened by comparative insights from contemporary sub-Saharan Africa. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the work of the British School in 2010.